Welcome back to the road to City Hall. While Mayor Koch was often outspoken on most topics, when it came to gay rights, Koch was frequently criticized for not doing enough, even though he created the Office of Gay and Lesbian Health Concerns and issued an executive order banning discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation by city contractors. Joining us to talk about Koch's record on gay rights are two gay rights activists on different sides of the issue. Christopher Lynn, who helped form the Stonewall Democrats, and Roskoff, a frequent critic of Koch, who was also the co-author of the nation's first gay rights bill. Welcome to both of you. Thank you for coming in. And I realize we're all coming in late to this, and these are battles that have gone on for decades. But I think it's worth sort of talking about, and I sort of divide this into three categories. There's what Koch said he was going to do, what he promised before he first got elected, and then what he actually did or did not do. Then the issue of whether or not he was closeted and whether or not he should have talked differently about his own sexuality. And then the third issue is the response to AIDS. So if we can get through all of those quickly, I would love to. On the first issue, he promised something to activists before he got elected, and as far as you're concerned, he reneged on it.
I think Chris will agree. Ed Koch promised us an executive order, which he established. He was asked about it the day he came into office, and he said he was doing it. And he also said that any mayor worth his salt could get the gay rights bill passed within the first 6 months of their administration. Well, he did not deliver on passing the gay rights bill. In fact, he invented excuses so that council members did not have to vote in favor of it. Anybody who was against the bill for religious reasons, he gave a pass. He said he understood and he wouldn't hold it against them. As Governor Cuomo proved, and he had a mixed record going back years over gay rights, but as he proved, the chief executive can secure passage of major legislation affecting the gay community, as he did with same-sex marriage. Ed Koch, after 6 months, had a meeting and he tore the community apart. He went after the activists, and it took 9 years for that bill to pass under the Koch administration. 9 years.
And you see it differently?
Somewhat differently. It's true that when Ed Koch was candidate, he promised that he would deliver on an executive order and a bill. The executive order was delivered the first day he became mayor. It was the third one he signed. It took until '86. It took 12 years to pass the gay rights bill. I believe that the reason it took so long was because the majority leader at that time, Tom Cute, had an ironclad control of the members of the council. That no matter what the mayor wanted to do, Tom Cute was not going to let it out of committee. How many times did we try? Alan knows, between the time it was first introduced and it eventually passed. Each and every year, practically. And 1 year, Carol Bellamy even moved for discharge. It never succeeded. We never had enough votes. Thomas Cute was that adamantly opposed to it that he wouldn't let it out.
But there's other legislation that the mayor, Ed Koch, brought people in and twisted their arms. There's what was called the pothole bill that no council member wanted to vote for. He called them in and he threatened their careers, and that bill passed. He did not do that with the gay rights bill. He would not employ that kind of force and arm twisting like Andrew Cuomo did.
And for a lot of people, this bleeds into that second issue I mentioned, which was, was he forthcoming about his own sexuality?
Well,
and should he have been?
No, he was a closeted man who I believe his own self-hatred prevented him from moving forward on the gay rights bill. He did not self-identify. We were them, they. And can you imagine when people came to the city rights, to the gay rights hearings, and they said we were perverts and deviants, and we should be shot, and we should be killed? Can you imagine the national ramifications if Ed Koch said, and Carol Bellamy for that matter, who was council president, had they both says, hey, you're talking about me. You want me killed? But no, his closet prevented him from self-identifying. It was like with Roy Cohn. It was a shame.
I don't know about that, but I want to talk about how the bill finally did get to pass. And it's because Andy Humm became the head of CLGR, which I was counsel for 10 years. And Andy Humm, more than any person, really took control of the process. And for 2 years before it was passed, Andy gave everybody an assignment to work with the various council people to secure their votes and their passage. And I can tell you as a fact, as we got close, Mayor Koch's administration was extremely useful in delivering a couple of votes, 2 or 3 council people, so they did try. Whether they didn't try before, I don't know. I wasn't active enough in the day-to-day process, but I did become active when Andy Humm took over CLGR, and we dedicated ourselves to the process of passing the bill.
Let me ask you something, Alan.
But
yes, I think
one other thing, Errol,
would,
really important. Once the gay rights bill was passed, a couple days after that, Alan knows this story, I got a call from Sam Horowitz that said, we're having an 8 o'clock meeting, you better get here, counsel. And I walked into this meeting and I was told it's a fait accompli. We're going to pass an amendment to the gay rights bill exempting 3-family homes. I was horrified. I said, well, we're not going to. I was told it was done. I ran down the hall. I saw the Cicero blubbering about this. The mayor came around the corner. I said, I need to talk to you about this, Mayor. And he took me aside and I told him what's going to happen. He said, raise your right hand. Promise after me you won't tell anybody. I said, tell me. He says, I'm going to veto it. And you know what? He did veto it. And he was 12 years mayor and he only vetoed 2 bills. One having to do with peddlers. He said because his father was a peddler. And this one. So I think that is significant. Maybe he didn't do enough in those years, but when it finally push came to shove and we got there, he helped pass it and then he stopped the council from gutting it. That's important.
It's great that you bring up Andy Humm, who's fantastic and one of the greatest leaders in the city, but I believe firmly that Andy's on my side on this argument and agrees with me 100%.
Well, let me ask you, go back to something you said a minute ago. If Carol Bellamy, if Ed Koch had done this, we don't have the right to ask for people to be heroic. I mean, he got elected mayor the same year that Harvey Milk got elected and was later assassinated. I mean, this was a different time to be an openly...
It's not heroic to say your identity. You talk about your wife on the show. Is that heroic to say that you're married to a woman? Is it heroic? No. Privacy, what's personal is the kind of sex you have, but not the fact that you're gay. That's identity. That's just identity. And when people don't come out 88 years old and you haven't come out, you know, that's shame. That's self-hatred.
I think your point is well taken. Alan Roskoff is a hero. Alan Roskoff led those hearings for the bill for 12 years. When he was a younger person teaching school and he came down to testify for the bill, he said, my name is Alan Ross. The reason being, he could not say his name because he would have been fired from his job. So Alan Roskoff is a hero, and people who are that heroic sometimes find it unforgivable that those of us who aren't as heroic don't meet the standard. But
did it play a role in his response to the AIDS crisis? That's a charge that was leveled quite forcefully.
As I understand the criticism by Larry Kramer, and I was counsel to ACT UP at the time, none of us did as much as they should have. Maybe with the exception of some of the activists who are still with us. But Larry Kramer's argument, as I understand it, is had Ed Koch come out and said, I happen to be gay, don't go to the bathhouses, don't have unprotected sex, it would have saved lives. I was involved in that because CLGR brought a lawsuit against Governor Cuomo because Governor Cuomo said AIDS is spread by anal intercourse and sex with men. Nothing with vaginal intercourse. Let me finish.
That's
what Cuomo said. Koch's position was, and we had meetings with him, and his Human Rights Commissioner, Jim Levin, who's openly gay, said to him, if you close the bathhouses, you're going to make this a gay issue. And therefore, Koch refused to do it. It is the issue. Because if he was so afraid of being gay, he would have said, yeah, let's close the bathhouses, right?
And eventually the issue is, and by the way, I was only in the closet for like 3 seconds. The issue is that it took Ed Koch 21 months to meet with the AIDS activists in New York City. We had a President Reagan who refused to say the word AIDS. We had the New York Times that refused to write about the epidemic. And we had a mayor who, instead of meeting with the advocates and meeting with the community that was being devastated and calling in the best minds in the country and recognizing this as a national health epidemic and crisis, he ignored it. He spent like $14,000 on the crisis. Compare that to what San Francisco spent. And even Margaret Thatcher, conservative government, educated the people of England and gave out needles.
Let me just
AIDS
say,
spread from the United States throughout the world, partly because of Ed Koch's inaction, which makes him, as he was called, an AIDS criminal.
When the crisis hit, a small group of lawyers got together and formed a group which later became the Lesbian and Gay Bar Association. Our response was to help people who had died and whose families were showing up saying, this is not your apartment, this is my son's apartment. And there were a lot of that. And there were hospitals who were keeping our folks on gurneys, St. Clair's being the chief offender among them. And there were funeral homes that wouldn't bury our dead. We were lepers. I made numerous calls to City Hall, directly to the mayor himself about this, to alert them. Did they act? They acted. Did they do what Alan did, which was to call a big meeting about that? They did not. Did they ask for big funding? They did not.
He refused to meet with the community. He refused to meet with the gay activists and with GMHC.
We're out of time. Ed Koch, I think, would be delighted that people are still arguing over his time in public service. And thank you for shedding some light on it with us tonight. We're going to take a break right now, and when we come back, Governor Cuomo says he won't back off his agenda, despite criticism from state Republican lawmakers. We will bring you the details. Also tonight, Hillary Clinton unveils a new website. Could this be the first step toward a 2016 run for the White House? We'll talk about it with Curtis Sliwa and Herson Barrero in our political rundown. Stay with us.